Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our live session today. My name is Larissa. I'm an event planner and reactor joining you from São Paulo, Brazil. Before we start, I have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. The session is being recorded and will be available to view on demand here on the Reactor YouTube channel within 48 hours. Keep an eye on the chat. We'll be dropping off links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer. I'll now turn it over to our speakers for today. So let's welcome here Shannon and Valerie.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited to be here with you today. If you are here to learn about the biggest Power BI contest of the year, you are in the right place. We are going to talk to you today about the Power BI Data Visualization World Championship, which kicked off this week. So let's jump into the content. Very quick introductions. My name is Shannon Lindsay, and I have the absolute pleasure of working on the Microsoft Fabric community team. I'm super happy to be here with you today, and I will be one of your hosts. And I am joined by my friend Valerie. Valerie, will you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hey, everyone. I'm Valerie. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP, and I love Power BI. So I'm so happy about this championship, and I'm happy that we can tell you everything about it today. So let's tell everyone what's this all about.
All right. So what are we? Oh, actually, most importantly, first and foremost, we have some absolutely fabulous moderators in the chat here today. We would like for this session to be interactive. So if you have questions, please drop your questions in the chat. We have Javier and Philippa who are here to answer all of your questions. In addition, we have our colleague Pam on the line who is going to help funnel some questions over to us. So we want to make sure that everything that you want to learn about the contest, we can answer for you. So with that being said, we'd love to know, we put a poll in the chat about how long you've been using Power BI, but I'd actually also love to know if anybody has like a favorite feature or a favorite something about data visualization in general. It does not have to be about Power BI, but what's your favorite thing about Dataviz? Let's see if we can get some responses in the chat about that. And of course, we've got everything you need to know about the contest right here at the QR code you see on your screen. It is also at the AKA link, aka.ms/ this one's a mouthful, PBIDVWC26. That is where you're going to find everything you need to know about this year's World Championships. Alrighty, so we all know why we're here. We all have favorite Dataviz features. We're busy in the chat. Our moderators are working hard to answer your questions. Thanks so much. Let's go ahead and jump into the content. All right, so what exactly are we going to do today? We have essentially 55 minutes left to chat all about this contest. What we're going to do is I'm going to start off and take us through what is the contest? Why should you participate? How is it scored? How do I know if I'm doing well or not well? And then we'll introduce a new element of the contest this year, which is some community voting. We're then going to go over the starter file and the submission details just in brief. And then we're going to hand it over. I will hand it over to Valerie, who is going to take us through her top tips, best practices for data visualization. Just real quick, if you did not get a chance to see Valerie's intro slide, she has her blog posted where she has loads of resources to help you get started. Is there anyone in the chat who participated in our last contest for Fabric Data Days where you had to create a CV using Power BI? If there's anyone in the chat, just, I don't know, give us a shout, raise a hand. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because one of the demo videos and starter files that we used for that contest was Valerie's, and it is fabulous. So if you haven't had a chance, I would say, please take a look at that. Her resources are super helpful. Okay, I digress. Should we jump into the content, Valerie?
Yes, but I think first we should mention again, this is live and interactive. So post everything you want to know in the chat, and then we can answer that. I think this is such a great opportunity.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so what is the Power BI Dataviz World Championships? If you have participated in this contest in the past, please drop something in the chat letting us know kind of what this contest was for you. I think this could really mean something different to everyone, but what we're going to do here today is just go over what do we expect, how do you submit your entry, how are we judging it, and then we'll talk a little bit about the starter file. But first, let's talk about kind of the prestige of this contest. I mentioned at the beginning, this is our biggest contest of the year. And what is so special about this contest is that we will bring 4 finalists live on stage to compete at the biggest Microsoft Data Conference of the year, FabCon, that is going to be held in March in Atlanta. So what is on the line is you will get hotel and a conference pass to join us at the conference. But that's not the real prize. The real prize is joining the ranks of our existing Power BI Dataviz World Champs, John and Paolo. If you want to learn more about these 2 fabulous designers, what it is that they do and how they make their magic, we have a session coming up next week where we will drop the link to that in the chat so you can join us. But there are currently only 2 Power BI Dataviz World Champs in the world that exist. So we want to see you join the ranks of these 2 fabulous creators. And shout out to Paolo and John. I'm not sure if they're on the line, but if you are, we love your work.
They're amazing. They're amazing.
Okay, so why should I join? What is the reason? And I'm sure we all have our own reasons to join these kinds of contests and to do this kind of work. The reason that we think you should join is, number one, it is really difficult to create and share your work so that the world can see it using the data that you use at work, right? So we want to make sure that you're able to build and share Power BI projects publicly to show off your skills. I would say that of the, I think there are many, many millions of creators using Power BI. Of those many millions, there's a small percentage of people that have a public portfolio. So this is a nice opportunity to start building and sharing in public. Another cool reason to join is just to have a sense of community and to get inspired by the other participants. We have hundreds of people, hopefully, who will participate in this contest. And I can honestly say with every round of a contest we do, I go through, I look through all of the entries, and I learn something new from almost every single person. I've been using Power BI for the full 10 years, and I learn something new every single time. So really excited to just see everyone learning from each other. We also, of course, have prizes. We have swag that we give away. This contest comes, of course, with a trip to Atlanta to participate in the finals. And then most importantly, we want to feature you. You all are the creators using Power BI. We want to feature you on the Fabric community site. We want people to know who you are and how fabulous your work is. So with all of that being said, is anyone feeling inspired, or are there other reasons why you might want to participate? Valerie, you've participated in quite a few of these in the past. What's your reason for participating?
It's just so much fun, and it's this really good opportunity to try new things, because like you said, when you have work and the data that you use during work, that's not really often it's not the most inspiring data. And participating in a contest like this, you can try everything you want, like all the conditional formatting, all the design layout things. You can try it. And that's just fun, being creative and having fun working with Power BI.
Awesome. Love that. Thank you. All right, so let's jump to the next slide, and we're going to talk about how to participate. Apologies, I'm having some technical difficulties, so I'm presenting to you from my phone. Valerie is sharing the slides. We're making it work. But so how do you participate in this contest? Is there anyone on the call who has not yet participated in a contest with the Fabric community? Maybe just type first time in the comments or something. We want to support you. Number one, we want to make sure that you feel seen and supported. So if you do have questions as you're working through the starter file, as you're building your report, drop us a comment on the blog post for the week 1 challenge, and we will be sure to answer those questions. You can also post questions on LinkedIn. You can post questions here in the chat while we're live. We want to make sure that we have resources for you. So with that being said, the first thing that you need to do is to join the Fabric community. When you go to the Fabric community site, you will see a button in the top right corner where you are able to register and log in. You are not able to submit unless you are registered, so please go ahead and do that. The second thing that you need to do to participate in this challenge is to download the starter file. Now, actually, it does say optional here for this contest. It is not optional. You need to use the starter file. And the reason for that is we want to create a level playing field. We want everyone to be using the same data set to build out this week 1 challenge report. You will notice that the data set is completely fictional for this challenge. And I know that there are some people on the line who have already played around with it. So we're going to talk a little more about the starter file in a couple of slides. So join the community, download the starter file. Please make sure to read through the contest rules carefully. There are certain stipulations like your report can have no more than 5 report pages. Okay, the reason for that is that we want to make sure we're comparing A, apples to apples for our judging, and B, we don't want to turn this into a marathon for you. This should be fun. You should be able to have fun participating, but you don't need to spend your whole life working on this. This is fun. Build, learn, spend a few hours on it, but you don't need to go too far above and beyond. The next thing we want you to do is, as you're building, be sure to review the judging criteria. We're going to go over the judging criteria in a few slides, but if you forget to pay attention to certain elements of what is being judged, the chances of you scoring high are slim. The reason for that is we have the judging criteria broken into 4 sections. And the 4th section, which is accessibility, is often overlooked in Power BI design. And Valerie's going to talk to us about how to do that later on. But just do be sure to pay attention to the judging criteria as you are building. Have it in front of you. The next thing to do is just to get creative and start building. I'm not sure what everyone's process is. Maybe you start with a sketch. Maybe you start with a wireframe. Maybe you start with a long walk where you think about what it is that you want to build. But make sure that you are thinking through your process and getting started building probably before the last day that the report is due, to be my advice on that one. You are allowed to get feedback from friends, family, whomever on your report. However, the official rules state that this should be individual work. So you should be the only person working on your report. That just keeps the playing field level and makes sure that we are really doing head-to-head competition. And then finally, once you feel confident with your submission, go ahead and submit. Post it to the contest gallery on the community site. Everything that you need to know that you see here on this slide is posted at the AKA link on the landing page for the contest. So you do not have to remember this. There will be no quiz, but we want to make sure that you know just exactly what we expect. So let's jump to the next slide and dig a little bit deeper and talk about the dates. So what is important and why? Before actually I talk through the specific dates themselves, I do want to mention, if you are new contributing to the Fabric community site, there is a moderation period from when you submit your report until when it appears publicly. The reason for that is just to protect you all, to protect our community, so we're not getting spam on the site. But do rest assured, if you submit your report before the due date, it will appear. It may not appear immediately, and you're always welcome to send me a message on the platform, but just note there is a moderation period if you are a first-time submitter. So with that being said, what are the key dates for this contest? What is important? So the contest did officially kick off on Monday. That is when we released the data set and the contest rules and the judging criteria. We now have until the following Monday, which is the 19th, for you to work on this report. We wanted to make sure that there's a weekend built into there because I would imagine almost every single person on this call is busy during the week. So we want to make sure that you have some time to really be able to think about this and dedicate to it. With that being said, you can see that each round of this contest lasts 1 week. Submissions are due on that last day at 11:59 Pacific time. Okay, so just before the next day in the Pacific time zone, and we can tell when you originally submitted on the site. With that being said, let me just talk actually higher level now a little bit about the structure, how we're doing this. So this contest has 3 official rounds. There will be 3 weekly challenges. They are back-to-back, weeks 1 through 3. In the 4th week, the judges will take a look at all of the submissions from weeks 1 to 3, and they will pick what we're calling a wild card. So there will be 3 distinct winners from each of the week, and we will have a wild card winner. And that will be a report that really stands out from one of the 3 weeks that we know should be a finalist. Okay, so judges will select that. We have actually 4 judges for this contest, and I need to get that blog post updated so you know who they are. I am one of them. I will be judging accessibility. And then after the judges complete the 3-week judging, we will select the wild card winner. So that is how we're going to get to our 4 finalists. We've got our 3 weeks plus our wild card. Another element that we are adding this time around, for those of you who have competed in the past, is we are also doing a community voting round where you can go in, you can look at people's reports, and you can give them a thumbs up or a kudo on our platform. What that's going to do is we are going to select a group of fan favorites. Fan favorites will also be featured on our site. We will do a special post where we will celebrate you and shout you to the rooftops. We may also have some prizes for the fan favorites. Note, the fan favorites are not a part of the finalist selection. The reason for that is we want to make sure that this is fair and that the judging is very objective. We don't want to let the finalists be selected at this point by the community, but we want to make sure that we are shouting out to the rooftops the reports that you all love. That's really important. We're trying this for the first time here, so please jump in, scroll through the gallery, vote for your favorites, and then depending on how it goes, we'll see what we do with that for the next couple rounds of competitions. So with that being said, we've got our live contest kicked off on the 12th. The contest officially runs through February 2nd with the 3 weeks of challenges. You can start voting beginning as soon as people start submitting their reports. You can look through, give them a thumbs up, start voting on those. We will then announce each of the finalists week by week. So we'll announce the finalists on the 26th, the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th. That's when our wildcard finalists will be announced. And then from there, you will have a month to celebrate and mentally prepare to compete live on stage at FabCon. So if there are any questions about these dates, please drop them in the chat. We'll be sure to get them answered. Then let's jump. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, should we jump to the next section?
Yes, please. Okay, this piece is really important and I'd love to talk about it. This judging criteria is the same criteria that we used for last year's Power BI Dataviz World Championships. And what I want to really emphasize is that we created this judging criteria very thoughtfully, and it is scored. Each of these sections is worth 10 points. We score each of the 10 points. We have a very clear rubric that we use to score the reports. Each judge scores the reports independently, and then we get together to deliberate. So what are we judging on? Okay, there are 4 key criteria. And like I said, each of these are a quarter of the points. They are equally important. So the first category is insightfulness. Is the report telling us something about what's going on in the data? Okay, the whole reason for Dataviz. Is the report visually effective? Are we using the right chart for the data? Are we using the right visual to display the insights that we want to display? In addition, with visual effectiveness, we're looking for, is the report laid out in a way that is intuitive to readers, that helps you get your point across in a logical fashion? Is the report free of clutter? Is it clean? Is it visually appealing? That's another piece of the visual effectiveness. The third piece of the puzzle is creativity and innovation. And this one is huge. I don't want to pick favorites, but creativity and innovation is one of my favorites, particularly in the judging, because you all are so creative. I just honestly am so surprised every single time when I look at these reports and I see you've taken such a simple data set and come up with the most incredible insights, and the things that come out of these, creativity is always off the charts. So is it creative? Is it innovative? Are you making full use of Power BI as a tool? That is what we look at for creativity and innovation. And then last but not least, this is arguably the most important piece of data visualization for me, and that is, have you designed your report to be accessible? And again, Valerie's going to talk us through each of these points, but the key things that we look at for accessibility are color contrast. Are we able to see, is there enough contrast between the background and the foreground, the text and the background? So we look at color contrast. The second thing we look at is tab order. Can people using a keyboard or a screen reader tab through the report in a logical fashion, in the way that you would expect them to read? And then the third thing that we look at is alternative text, meaning if someone is using a screen reader, we want to make sure that your charts and graphs have a description of what's going on in them. Real bonus points for those descriptions being dynamic, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. Accessibility, just real quick question for the chat. How many people already design for accessibility on a daily basis? If anyone works for like a government agency or sometimes larger nonprofits that are funded by government, accessibility is often a requirement. Those of us that work in private industry, it may not be as much of a requirement, so this might be new to you, but building for accessibility is incredibly important so that we make sure that everyone can understand what's going on in our report, regardless of whether or not they're looking at the report or navigating with a mouse. Okay, so that is our judging criteria. That's kind of a broad overview. We do have some blog posts where we go through it in a little bit more detail, so we can drop those in the chat. But let's go ahead and jump to the next slide and talk about the starter file. All right, so starter file, how to build and how to submit. We're not actually going to look at the starter file together today. but we are going to talk about it. So let's jump to the next slide. And for this contest, we have for you a starter or a sample file. This file contains all of the data that you are going to need to compete this challenge. If you want to add additional data to the starter file, you can. However, because this data is all fictional, I'm not sure how much value that would add to the report, but you can add additional data, you can add images, you can add things that are not in the starter file. We just want to make sure that you start with that basis. What you're going to find in the starter file is very, very simple. It is 2 tables. We have a table that tells you information about a set of fictional cities. And then we have a table that tells you information on quality of life in those cities. So it's 2 tables. It's very simple. One other just thing to note about the information in the starter file, this information was all entered manually. So you do not need any sort of Excel files or connecting to a server or anything like that to make sure that you can access the data. Everything that you have, everything in the starter file should be there for you to use. And there are some instructions in there as well so that you don't have to have the blog post pulled up at the same time as the starter file. You can access the starter file on the link that you see on the screen here. It is in the week 1 blog post. You'll see there's a direct download link. And then if that's not working for you or you're having issues, there is also a link to the GitHub repo where the file is stored. So do let us know in the comments on the week 1 challenge if you're having any issues with the starter file, but you should be able to see everything that you need right there.
It's so nice that everything is in that file. So you can really get started. You download the file and you can get started and be creative.
Yes, and you know, we have not always done it this way. This is something that we've added as we've learned from our contests, and it really does lower the kind of scariness of entering, I think. So if I was told, go find a data set and build me something with really broad criteria, which is what we did in the very first ever round of this, I think I would be a little bit more intimidated. But now we're saying, here's a file, here's everything you need, and all you need to do to get started is to just click around on the fields and see what you're working with.
It's fantastic, fantastic.
Okay, so I am going to wrap up with this last couple of slides here and just talk through what's the best way to plan your submission. There are a few resources out there in the wild. We have a video from a friend of ours, Greg Nash, who's a Microsoft MVP. He created a video on how to plan for your entry. That's out there on YouTube. Our friend Santana Lakshmi, she also created a series of blog posts about how to plan for your entry, and we'll find those links and drop them in the chat. But just there is a way to approach this strategically. And there's also a way to approach it where you're just having fun. So choose your best path, but do start by exploring the sample file. Understand what the data is in there. Understand what those metrics are and what they mean. For example, when a high value is good versus a high value being not so good. So take a look at those metrics, think about what you want to include, and sketch out your ideas. I personally almost always start with either a hand-drawn sketch or a sketch in PowerPoint. That's just my process. I'd love to know if you have wireframing or sketching processes that might help other people that you could drop in the chat. I'm curious, Valerie, I love your design aesthetic. Do you usually sketch out your ideas or how do you start?
Yes, I sketch them on paper, very old school. Because I have all these ideas and then I start sketching and having it all on paper. And what happens then is at a certain point of time, I get some scissors and I rearrange stuff. And after I've done all of that, then I start building in Power BI.
That is fascinating. It almost to me sounds like adjacent to like interior design where you move the little pieces of furniture around in the room. That's really cool. Really
similar.
cool.
It's similar.
Yeah. So Valerie just took us through essentially sketch out your ideas, plan your layout, choose the right visuals. She does that all in one fell swoop, which is really cool. And then do be sure to test interactivity. Power BI is an interactive tool, and we want to make sure that we are not just looking at a completely static infographic. So test out that interactivity, validate your data, make sure what you're looking at is correct. And then, of course, be sure that every step of the way you're thinking about that accessibility piece. All right, and now I'm going to stop talking. I think you've heard enough from me. If you have additional questions about the content, I guess I should go through this. This is important.
Almost.
Okay, how to submit. Just 2 more slides from me, very, very quickly. So what we are looking at here, this is the contests gallery. You will find a link to this in the post. And what you'll need to do here is be sure that you are logged in, and you can see that in the top right-hand corner there. You can see my little witch emoji. So I'm logged in here, and then you're just going to simply hit the submit button. This is going to bring you to a form, and we can jump to the next slide.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And in this form, there are a few things that you need to make sure that you fill out. You need to fill out the title. You need to fill out the description. You need to attach a PBIX file. For this contest, you actually do have 2 options. You can upload a Power BI publish to web URL if that is something that you have access to. However, we do not expect that. You also can attach your PBIX file and we will publish it for you. So add your title, add your description, add your attachment, add a thumbnail, and then you will go ahead and hit submit. A couple things to note, actually. We do have a blog post written by one of our super users and MVPs, Sahir Maharaj. We have links out to that on the landing page, and the blog post is basically how to submit a good contest entry. So when our judges are judging, of course, the main thing we're looking at is the report itself. But if you add additional information and insights in your description, we will also read that. So feel free to use that field for adding value to your report. And then finally, you will submit. Once you submit, just one quick note, once you submit, your report will not appear immediately. There is always the case of if you are new to our galleries or new to our site, it goes through a pre-moderation, which could take up to 24 hours. So just be patient there. The second thing to note is the way that we publish these reports to web for you, it runs on an every 10-minute cycle. So if you hit submit and you see your report or you see your entry, but you don't see the live report embedded, wait 5 to 10 minutes and then it will appear. So don't worry. It's not the smoothest process in the world, but we will make sure that it gets up there for you. Okay, now I believe I'm really done.
There was one question in the chat about the submissions, and it was, if I don't get picked for round 1, can I submit for the other rounds? I think that's a very good question.
That is an excellent question, and I'm so glad that you asked because we should definitely talk about this. In this contest, this time around, there are 3 distinct chances to win. So please, if you submit in round 1 and it doesn't work out for you, submit in round 2 and submit in round 3. You can submit all 3 times. You can only submit 1 time per round, so it is 1 submission per person, but you can submit all 3 rounds. That's a great question. Were there any other questions, Valerie, that we needed to address?
There are. For example, is the challenge going to change each round?
Yes. Okay, another great question. The challenge will change each round. We will be using a different data set with a completely different subject matter. We do have them pre-selected, but we reveal them on the day that the challenge is released. Sometimes the data set is related to things that are happening, current events. Sometimes it's related to more traditional business use cases. But yes, there will be a different challenge each round. Great question.
Yeah. And another one is, since the data is location data, can we use map tools?
Yes, I love this question because maps are my favorite. This question is a bit tough because it's location data that is not real, so it's not mapped to anything. However, you could create your own map. So yes, you absolutely can get creative with that, for sure.
Yeah, and I think there's a related question where someone asks, can we use Deneb or other visuals from the store?
Yes, fabulous question. And this is something I completely left out. So great question. The requirements for this contest are that in your report, you use at least one Power BI core visual. And what that means is those are the little visuals that are available to you in the visuals pane on the right-hand side or in the ribbon. So that's your bar chart, your line chart, the standards, a card. You need to use at least one of those. The rest of your visuals can be custom visuals if you choose to do that. So you can use Deneb, you can use HTML, you can use any of the custom visuals that you choose.
It's amazing. You can be so creative. This is going to be so much fun. I will actually also participate just for fun because I love this challenge already.
I cannot wait to see what you create.
And I will tell you a little bit about Dataviz in Power BI for everyone that wants to participate. Give you some tips and tricks how you can turn your data into clear stories, actionable insights, these kind of things. And I think it's very important to mention again, everyone can participate. So please share your ideas and your Power BI ideas, because it doesn't matter if you're new or very experienced, we can all learn from each other. And it's also very nice to get inspiration from others. And one of the things I always do when I get started with a new Power BI file is I have a look into the layout and structure. So I'm not going to drag and drop all the data in Power BI directly, but I first make like a layout for myself where I want to place all the data. And why do I do that? To prevent clutter. Because if I just get started and drag and drop things in Power BI, it will be everywhere. And the funny thing is, the more or the longer you look at your own data and your own Power BI file, the more sense it makes. So after spending like 40 hours on a Power BI file, everything makes sense, but maybe for the audience, your user, it doesn't make sense anymore. So I force myself to create a little bit of layout and structure. And I have some examples for you here. Let's say this is your canvas. This is your Power BI background. You could give it like a gray background color and then just plot some shapes in there and make sure they all have the same height, the same distance in between. And you can already see this looks very clean. And of course, there's no data in there yet, but it's very organized. We have a title at the top left. We have some navigation at the top. At the top right, you can see someone is greeting the user, and it's very organized. And of course, this is 12 shapes. Maybe that's a little bit much. But you could also create something like this, where you have a header, and then in the first row, you have your KPIs, and then you have 2 visuals. If you arrange things like that before you get started, you already organize everything. It makes it so much easier to fill it afterwards. And also, you can use all these best practices, like have the KPIs in the first or in the top row, these kind of things. So layout and structure is very, very important because it makes it easier for the user, for the people looking at your report, to actually focus on the information, because they don't need to focus on searching the information. It's very predictable. KPIs will be at the top. The title will be at the top left, these kind of things. So it's very easy to look at the information they're really looking for. And we actually have an example of a quite nice layout for you from one of our champions. It's from Jonathan, and you can see a few things going on there. This report is like divided in two halves. We have the left and the right. And at the left, we have a title, a subtitle, and then we have some buttons that you can select. And according to the buttons that you select, the right side of the visual will change and you will get some information. It's very predictable what you can do because all the buttons are on the left side. They're all nicely aligned. And on the right side, you have the information that will be produced. And we have some visual cues for you actually in there. You can see the distance to the side is to the line, or the outside of the report is the same. Everything's aligned. The distance between the buttons is also the same. The alignment is the same. So this makes it very easy to look at it. So it's very predictable, even though there's a lot going on this page with the buttons and the title and the text and the picture on the right side. If you organize it and structure it in a easy to understand way for the user, it's okay to have all these elements. But the layout and the structure is very, very important because, for example, if these buttons would be everywhere, like one button or one set of buttons at the top left, one at the bottom right, the user really has to search where they want to click. And now everything is easy to find. So we thought it's always good to have an example and show you how other people approach this. Something else that's very, very important, and I don't know if you know that, it's padding. Put it in the chat if you actually change these standard settings that Power BI has for padding. And padding actually is, you have your visual, like this chart, and then you can say what the distance is from the top, the bottom, left, and right. And in our example on the left side, you can see that the padding to the top is 0. So it's really at the top. The visual starts at the top. And that looks very, it feels a little bit cluttered. And the visual at the right, you see we have a padding of 12 and 20 pixels, 12 pixels from the top, 20 pixels from the left. And it makes it much easier to look at. And these are really like these small differences that have a huge impact on the human brain, because the way we perceive information, if things are very cluttered, it makes it harder for us. There's this cognitive load. You really have to focus, what am I looking at? And if we have these if we follow these best practices and make it easier for people to look at the visuals, it's also easier for your user to process the information. So the padding is very, very important. And if you wonder, where can I change that? If you're new to Power BI or you never changed the setting, we have that also for you here. If you would click on your visual, like your bar or column chart, and you open the format pane, it's below size and style. There you can actually change it. And I would really like to encourage you to try that and see the effect for yourself. I think, and that's why I like to participate in challenges like these. If you try this yourself and you see the effect, it makes it much easier to understand. So give this a try, and it makes visuals look not only cleaner, but it makes them also easier to understand for the person that's looking at them. So padding, really nice one. And if you use a good layout, if you use a layout, if you make sure that the padding is the right way, if the distance between the buttons is good, your visuals will, or your dashboard will also be easier to look at. And so people can really focus on the information. So that's about the layout. And I also wanted to tell you something about color. Because color is nice, but we need to use it intentionally. Because I will show you a color wheel. I don't know if you know that. This is a color wheel, and you see like primary and secondary colors. I will actually show you this. And for example, primary colors are yellow, blue, and red. And secondary colors are the colors that you get when you mix primary colors. So if you mix yellow and blue, you will get green. And depending on how much blue or yellow you will put in there, the green will be lighter or darker. And you can already see that, for example, red and green are opposite of each other. And you see a lot in dashboards that people create that they use green if something is good and red if something isn't that good, because you can see the difference quite clearly. I say you see the difference quite clearly. That's not always the case. And we will get back to that in the accessibility part, because some people can't see all the colors. But in general, we say if use contrasting colors if you want to show something is going on. The problem is if you're using too many contrasting colors or you use all the colors of the color wheel, it will be very hard to look at. So it's very, very important to make sure that you create something. You can use colors, but maybe don't use all of them, and make sure that they work well together. And I know that's easier said than done, because sometimes you just really don't know which colors should I use. And we put 2 links for you on the next slide of online tools that you can use. The first one is color.adobe.com, where you can see quite nicely which colors are working well together. And they also have an option, I like that option a lot, that's extract theme. You can upload a picture. So for example, you could upload your company style guide, or you have seen a picture somewhere and you think, oh, these colors work very well together. You can upload it and then extract the colors out of them. So if you have really no idea where you want to start with the colors, that can be an excellent way. And the second link is Coolors, and they have all kinds of nice color palettes. Not all of them work 100% for a report, but they can give you some inspiration. And I'm very, very curious if you use these 2 or if you have other suggestions, because colors is such a tricky thing, choosing the right colors. And I know a lot of people that work with Power BI, they struggle with choosing the colors. So if you have any tips or tricks for this, put it in the chat and share it.
Valerie, I have one that I'd like to share, just yes, as we're talking here. This is not necessarily for choosing which colors, but as I'm building, I keep a color contrast analyzer open on my screen. And that just helps me make sure that I'm doing things with enough contrast. Maybe we'll get to that later, but I'll post the link in the chat here for that one.
That's awesome. Yes, please post it in the chat, because all help is welcome with choosing colors. And we want to also show you something about accessibility, because accessibility is very, very important. And that's also why we have the scoring for it. But it's also important to make or create a report that is accessible for everyone. We don't want to exclude people. And Shannon already said it at the beginning. There are 3 things that we can take care of very actively in Power BI, and these are the tab order, alternative text, and color contrast. And the tab order is actually, if you're using a keyboard and you can't use a mouse, Power BI has a tab order where it selects what someone selects with the keyboard. And you need to make sure, or you need to arrange that order, because Power BI arranges it from visual to visual. So the first visual you add will be at the lowest tab order, and then all the visuals you are adding will be on top of that. But that's often not logical. If you start with the KPI here, then it's 1. But if you then use the bar chart at the bottom right, that's 2. But that doesn't make sense. So what you need to do is in Power BI, go to the selection pane, and then right of layer order, you have tab order, and there you can actually arrange that. And you can do that very fast. It takes you like 1 minute, and you make sure that people can actually use a keyboard, which is amazing. You make your report really accessible. The second thing is alt text, alternative text, that you can create for your visuals. So alternative text, if someone uses a screen reader and they hover with the mouse over a visual, this alternative text will be read first. So you can put the most important information in there, or the title or description, everything that's important. If someone couldn't see the visual, what do you want them to hear about the data? And you see that little FX button, that's for conditional formatting. So you can even make that dynamic. You could already put part of the results in there. So it would read like the actual results is 258 million, something like that, to make it very easy to use the report, even if you can't see it directly. And the third thing we already mentioned is color contrast, because it's not only important to actually choose colors, but also to have a good contrast, a good text to background color contrast ratio. That means that the background color and the foreground color has enough contrast. And there are tools where you can check that. And I would really, really recommend doing that, because it would be really a shame if you create this amazing report where you, for example, use certain colors, but then some people can't see it that way. So accessibility is very, very important, and you should really think about it. And all of these things that we're mentioning here, they don't take a lot of time to implement. You just need to know how to do it and get started. And if you want to learn more about that, we have 2 links for you. The first one is a blog post from Elena about the Power BI accessibility checklist with tips and tools. And the second one is actually the accessibility checker by Stephanie Bruno. And I would really recommend to have a look at that. Because if you have never thought about accessibility of Power BI reports, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But these tools and websites already help you. And if you have links or other tools that you are using to check for accessibility in Power BI, make sure to also put that in the chat so everyone can learn from that.
One just quick note, actually, talking about accessibility. In the week 1 blog post, if anyone is in there and you scroll down, there is a really great question from one of our past competitors, Karen, asking about accessibility. And I haven't had a chance to respond to that question yet. But if there's anyone who is really passionate about accessibility and wants to take a look at that, you're welcome to respond. I will also respond. But what makes me really excited about these contests is that I think it gives us kind of a fresh look at accessibility and reminds us that it's important. So I'm super happy to see the questions coming in, and please keep them coming.
Accessibility is super important, and I'm very happy that it's part of the scoring for this championship. So we should all think about making reports as inclusive as possible. I think we are almost at the end of our session, and we wanted to give you some top tips for success before you all get started, because I will get started after this session. I will download the file and get started. But we want to give you some tips here. Top tips for a winning entry. The first one, I think, is, it always sounds easier than it is. Tell a story. But what we mean with that is make your message clear. Make it easy to understand what you're trying to show. You don't need to put everything on one page. I think we are allowed to submit 5 pages. If your report needs 2 or 3 pages, that's okay. You don't have to put everything on one page. You don't need to create these very long pages. It's okay to have several pages, but tell a story. Make it clear what you want to tell and keep it simple. Don't put on the dashboard everything that you can find, but use the things that are important. And it's okay to remove stuff. And I know I get attached to my reports and visuals. Like once they're on the report, I don't want to remove them anymore, but it's okay. It's okay to put them away if they don't add any value. Pick the right visuals and think about accessibility. I think these are all very good points. Shannon, do you have additional points, or do you want to elaborate on one of these?
I actually wanted to, I don't want to detract from the slide, but I wanted to answer one of the questions in the chat, which was, are there any thoughts on hidden pages when it comes to how many pages you can have? And my response to that is that if you're using hidden pages as a tooltip, for example, that is completely okay. And remember that tooltips do add something to your story, but they're not inherently accessible. So definitely use tooltips, use them wisely. If you feel like they're adding something to your report, they often really can, but try not to rely on them would be my advice for that. We really want to make sure that the amount of content that you're creating here is around 5 pages. So you can use hidden tooltip pages, that's fine, but I would try to keep it to a minimum.
Yeah. That's great advice. Yeah. Do we have any final words on this slide? Check your data, validate measures, and polish design. I think that goes back to our layout and structure. Like once you've created everything, make sure everything is aligned. There's enough space between visuals. Make it consistent. Check if everything is accessible. Check if you tell the story that you want to tell, and make sure that you're using the right visual that you think is the right visual to answer the question. I think these are great tips. And are there any more questions in the chat?
I don't see any questions at the moment.
Can go back to the link where people actually find all the information.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Valerie. I learn so much from you every single time I hear you present. So this is so fantastic. Huge thank you to every single person on the line and in the chat. Thanks to our moderators and to our producers for joining us here today. Valerie, any final words you want to say before we wrap this up?
I'm very enthusiastic about this challenge, and thank you all for joining. And I'm looking so forward to seeing what people are going to submit.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we can't wait to see what you create. So we'll be keeping our eyes in the contest gallery, and we will be continuing to update that landing page every week with the new challenges. So we will see you all over in the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Shano. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you all for joining our session today. And thank you to our moderators and the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and our experience, so if you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find the link to our survey on the screen or in the chat. We'll see you in the next one.